Welcome to a new session on contemporary socio-political philosophy. Here we discuss decentralization of power, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was one of the epoch-making figures in India, combined both moral idealism and political success. He was a unique figure and had simple and straightforward views which he preached and practiced without swerving from truth at every moment during his long career as a social reformer, a political teacher, a saint, a true lover of humanity, and an apostle of non-violence, truth, love, goodness, and peace. The entire life of Mahatma Gandhi was an experiment with truth, and the experiment ultimately proved the victory of truth over untruth, of love over hatred and violence. Mahatma Gandhi held a unique position in the public life of this country for more than 4 decades as a leader of not only great political movement but as a moral and social reformer with an immense and unprecedented following. He had really identified himself completely with the toiling and poverty-stricken masses of India, and he lived as the poorest of his countrymen lived. Gandhiji had in fact imbibed a rare insight into the various problems facing the country to which others could not. Mahatma Gandhi's economic ideas were developed from his political and moral principles such as Swaraj, Sarvodaya, truth and non-violence. If he brought together these principles, it would give a picture of the economic system that Mahatma Gandhi visualized. He used the term decentralization along with the other economic ideas as a technique of building an economic system which was purely Indian and mass-based. Gandhiji was not well acquainted with the economics in technical sense of the term. He cannot be placed on the list of economists of the world of in the modern sense. However, his approach to the economic problems and their solution has been quite unique. He had a strong feeling that the economics, like politics, cannot be divorced from morals. Thus, he viewed economics and economic problems in an entirely different way. Gandhian economic and political views are a rational approach to our problems of national reconstruction and regeneration. The concept of decentralization is not of recent origin. Writers, social reformers, political philosophers, modern pluralists and liberal socialists emphasized the concept of decentralization of economic and political powers of the state. Mahatma Gandhi's concept of decentralization does not stand in isolation, but it is shaped by other concepts and ideas. He preached non-violence, Swaraj, trusteeship, Swadeshi, Khadi, etc. All these concepts directly or indirectly flow from the theme of decentralization. Gandhian concept of political decentralization. Non-violence, according to Mahatma Gandhi, was a means and as an end in itself. It is the basic tenet of political and economic decentralization. Mahatma Gandhi was the firm opinion that exploitation was the essence of violence as it harmed the personality of individuals. He believed that exploitation became a reality when power was concentrated in a single body like the state. Because according to Mahatma Gandhi, state is a soulless machine and it can be never weaned from violence. There is a close connection between decentralization of political powers and his concept of ahimsa. Mahatma Gandhi was the foremost champion of ahimsa. Mahatma Gandhi held the view that the state represents violence in an undiluted and organized form. Hence, perseverance of non-violence or ahimsa was of the utmost importance. Violence must be avoided, and to eliminate violence, concentration of power must be avoided through decentralization of power from the state. He looked upon an increase in the power of the state with the greatest fear, because although while apparently doing good by minimizing exploitation, it does the greatest harm to mankind, destroying individuality, which lies at the root of all progress. Destroying individuality means exploitation, which led to violence. Therefore, to avoid violence and to ensure maximum flowering of human personality, decentralization of political power must become an end of a progressive and welfare-oriented society. He believed that a government cannot succeed in becoming entirely non-violent because it represents all the people. But he believed in the possibility of a predominantly non-violent society. Mahatma Gandhi said that political power of the state was not an end in itself, but one of the means enabling the people to better their condition in every department of life. He saw human progress in human happiness by combining all mental and moral growth, the greatest good of all, rather than the greatest good of the greatest number. He always said that if the means was proper, the ends would take the care of themselves. His objective was securing human happiness with full mental and moral in itself. He maintained that such an end can be achieved under decentralization. Centralization as a system is inconsistent with the non-violent structure of society. Mahatma Gandhi's belief was that the state represented an organization based on force. It manifested its coercive power through compulsion and exploitation of the individuals in the society. Any action of the state which was not voluntary in nature was immoral, since in his scheme of thinking every action was judged from the touchstone of ethical property. No action which is not voluntary can be called moral. So long as we act like machines, there can be no question of morality. If we want to call an action moral, it should have been done consciously and as a matter of duty. Political power was just a means, not an end in itself. It was a means to regulate national life through national representatives. Mahatma Gandhi reasoned that national life could become perfect if it was self-regulated, wherein no representation becomes necessary. There is then a state of enlightened anarchy. In such a state, the sovereignty vests in everyone who is his ruler. He governs himself in a manner that he respects the freedom of his neighbor, and in all such activity there is no political power because there is no state. Mahatma Gandhi was an individualist, and he argued in favor of stateless society. It was the concept of enlightened anarchy. Mahatma Gandhi always felt that the state was an instrument of coercion which undermined the freedom of individuals. He believed in the efficacy of non-violence for the socio-economic and spiritual salvation of the individual. Mahatma Gandhi's concept of enlightened anarchy has three phases. In the initial stage, the goal was one of the immediate Swaraj based on nationalization, and in the second stage, the objective was to bring about a non-violent state through the evolution of village republics. In the final stage, the purpose was to achieve Ram Raj. The non-violent state would be transformed into a pure democracy, changed with the ideal of enlightened anarchy. Swaraj, a non-violent state, and Ram Raj are significant milestones in Mahatma Gandhi's concept of decentralization. Village Swaraj is another crucial element of his concept of decentralization. Swaraj means self-rule. Village Swaraj means every village must be an independent and self-contained unit in itself. He visualized villages to be self-sustained and autonomous so that every village is capable of managing its affairs itself, even to the extent of defending itself against the onslaught of the environment. Self-rule and self-sufficiency of villages did not mean that every village was far away and separate from the neighboring villages, or that each village in its habitat lived a life of splendid isolation from the rest of the world. His idea of village Swaraj was a complete republic independent of its neighbors for its vital wants and yet interdependent for many others, in which dependence is a necessity. In Mahatma Gandhi's concept of village Swaraj, every village must be freedom of manage its affairs without external interference from above in its area of competence. It must have its own organizational structure in the form of government. The individual is the architect of his own government. Every village with its characteristics of self-rule and self-sufficiency is supposed to represent the values of a true democracy, wherein authority and power are shared and exercised by different function arises. The individual will have complete freedom to shape his destiny according to his wishes. His thoughts and actions will be pervaded by the spirit of non-violence in an atmosphere of genuine freedom. The law of non-violence rules himself and his government. In the modern world, though different nations prefer different ideologies like democracy, communism, etc., one similarity in almost every nation of the world is the pyramid structure of the administrative system. Normally, it is known and accepted by one and all that power flows from top to bottom rather than the other way around. But Mahatma Gandhi's greatest contribution was to alter fundamentally the base, structure and shape of the power pyramid. In his scheme of village Swaraj, the pivotal element is the individual who comes into his own. After that come the village and finally group of villages. Decentralization of power is possible in a structure consisting of a large number of different villages encompassing each other in concentric circles. The Gandhian power pyramid structure operates on the assumption that human beings are capable of carving out their own destinies without interference or coercion from the functionaries at the top. Mahatma Gandhi believed that in such an oceanic circle, the individual will rise to the occasion and be prepared to sacrifice everything for the cause's village. Mahatma Gandhi began with village Swaraj and ended up in proposing Ramraj or Enlightened Anarchy through the instrumentality of non-violence. He was in search of an ideal state where everyone was his own ruler without much interference by the state. The values like non-violence, individual freedom and equality have given a solid base to Mahatma Gandhi's concept of decentralization of power at the political level. Economic decentralization. Mahatma Gandhi was not a professional economist in the true sense of the term, but in large and eventful life, he had occasion to develop his economic ideas based on the situation in India. Gandhian economic theory provides a new and realistic approach to contemporary problems of poverty, hunger and degradation. Beginning with the position that exploitation is at the root of all violence, Mahatma Gandhi builds his economic ideas in such a manner that avoids exploitation of man by man. His panacea is to do away with the concentration of economic power by proposing economic decentralization at various levels of the power hierarchy of the Indian society. He believed that if India was evolved as a non-violent country, it will have to decentralize many things. According to Gandhiji, salvation of masses lies in a decentralized organic economy. A centralized economy leads to the concentration of population in cities, leading to many problems of urbanization like gangsterism, alienation from society and natural surroundings, leading to slums, pollution of the atmosphere, violence and crime. Centralization has caused inequalities among the people, conflicting interest, varying classes, wasteless competition, dehumanized market overproduction of luxuries and harmful articles, while the basic needs are not satisfied, and the degradation of skilled workers. Gandhiji was not against the use of machines or centralization where it was indispensable. He was not opposed to machines as such, but he was not against making men slaves of machines. He was against it as it concentrates production and distribution in the hands of a few. He very well knew that this body itself is a most delicate piece of machine. He aimed not at eradication of all machinery, but its limitation. He objected to the use of machinery as an instrument of greed and approved of any machine which does not deprive masses of men of the opportunity to labor, but which helps the individual and add to his efficiency, and which a man can handle at will without being its slave. He visualized a decentralized economic order where there would be no exploitation, social or economic, by man. Generally, decentralization is viewed as pronounced priority to the small scale and cottage industries, but the concept of decentralization in fact is all pervading. He favored decentralization in economic as well as political area. He was totally against centralized efforts. The development based on labor saving machines led to the mass production in a centralized way, and the distribution also is resorted to in that manner. It has helped in the development of such a society where the gap between the haves and have-nots has increased tremendously. It also helped in the extensive use of machines in such a manner which resulted in making the machine of the men and displacing large number of people from the employment. So Gandhiji advocated the village self-sufficiency so that villages could no remain dependent upon others, at least for their needs. According to Mahatma Gandhi, decentralization is one of the means to create classless, unexploited and egalitarian society. The word decentralized sector in economics is used to refer to the cottage industries located in the rural areas. The concept of decentralization is related to the rural economy as a whole. It is pervasive to the Gandhian concept of economic philosophy, technical progress, emphasis on agriculture and tiny sector, cooperatives, distributive justice, employment mixed economy, barter system, villagism and the doctrine of Indian economy, etc. Gandhian concept towards decentralization contains the key for reshaping the existing pattern of our social, political and economic system. In the production field, he was in favor of production by masses in place of the modern craze for mass production. In the economic system, production and distribution growth with social justice so that the benefits trickle down to the millions of masses. The whole program of Mahatma Gandhi is built on the solid foundations of economic equality and distributive justice, which never means possession of an equal amount of worldly goods by everyone. It means that everyone will have proper house to live, sufficient and balanced food to eat and sufficient khadi to cover himself. Gandhiji ceaselessly talked of meeting the basic needs of food, clothing and shelter for the last man of India. If the Gandhian approach for the development of economy on a decentralized way is adopted, it would also need a change in the present system of education and training. much of the cost of education and training would be reduced considerably and would not go waste as we find it today. Crores of students are wasting their time, energy and money for getting a kind of education which they find to be quite useless. The restlessness of the society on this account is also quite marked, and politicians with vested interest are taking political advantage out of it. The students are being exploited for the selfish gains of a few. We make efforts to train the youth of the villages with simple arts and crafts so that they may do something to earn their living by staying in the villages itself. We would be doing more service to them rather than attracting them in the urban centers with all their glamour. They should be explained the importance of dignity of labor, simply living and high thinking. They should be explained about our cultural heritage and how to preserve it without training them to love foreign culture and foreign goods more and more. This will also help in hastening the process of decentralization in the country. If we do not follow the approach of decentralized development in the country as advocated by Gandhiji, the dignity of man as a man also is lowered considerably. Gandhian ideas in Indian economic planning have great relevance today. The economic portion of Mahatma Gandhi's vision was based on a set of interrelated concepts. Gandhian economics was meant to set up Swaraj or Sarvodaya society characterized by simplicity, self-sufficiency and self-reliance. His Swaraj embodied multifaceted constructive programs and laid heavy emphasis on cooperative and equitable social relations. He also strove for a renewal and a new development of localized economy, village industries and rehabilitation of handicrafts, which he felt still essential in any viable solution to the problem of India's enforced poverty. Gandhian economic ideas are the attainment of economic equality with the help of non-violent means, idea of trusteeship to be implemented by moral revolution, best utilization of whole manpower as a key to real planning, village self-sufficiency and self-reliance to be achieved through cooperative activities, adoption of appropriate technology to establish an egalitarian society. So, let us summarize the session. This session deals with Mahatma Gandhi's concept of decentralization of economic and political power. His concept of decentralization is the product of his wide-ranging mind, which probed into the harsh realities of man's social, political and economic life. From a wider perspective, it can be said that Mahatma Gandhi, through his concept of decentralization, was trying to find solution to certain basic issues like arbitrary state power, unlimited violence, economic exploitation of man by man, removal of poverty and socio-economic inequalities. To a certain extent, his idea of decentralization helps to maintain the equilibrium of the society. Mahatma Gandhi's challenges still continue and have some relevance in the welter of the modern technological civilization. Here are some assignments for you. 1. Briefly discuss political and economic decentralization. Number 2. What is the difference between centralization and decentralization? Number 3. Evaluate the concept of Enlightened Anarchy and its different phases. Number 4. Mahatma Gandhi was not opposed to machines. Make a scrutiny about this statement. Number 5. What are the advantages of decentralization? I can also suggest some books for your further studies. The Political Philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi and Sarvodaya, written by Verma VP, published by Lakshmi Narain Agarwal, Agra in 1965. The Philosophical and Sociological Foundations of Gandhism, Gandhian Concept of State, written by Verma VP, published by B.B. Majumdar, Calcutta, M.C. Shankar and Sons in 1975. Gandhi as a Political Thinker, written by Sharma B.S., published by Indian Press Private Limited, Allahabad in 1956. India Needs Gandhi, written by Narayan Shriman, published by S. Chand and Cooperative Private Limited, New Delhi in 1976. In Defense of Missionary, written by Desai Mahadev, published by Young India in 1935. Gandhi, An Approach to Decentralization, Its Relevance, written by Raghavalu C.V. and Annadura R., published by the Indian Journal of Public Administration in 1978. Thank you for watching this session. See you next time. Until then, bye.